Essentially, Claude's limitations saved the day. So its hallucinations of credentials required human verification, which prevented fully autonomous attacks. So Jeff Bezos is back, destroying a historical bridge to, get his yacht out of a canal.
When I think of the number one in security, I think of Anthropic.
Basically, Microsoft is creating, incredible value by unifying data, productivity, and AI layers, but it also deepens dependency on their ecosystem.
Okay, so my bold prediction is going to be 12 months from now.
Welcome back to Tech for Thought. We're your hosts, Chris and Sahib, and wow, what a week in AI. We're diving into some genuinely watershed moments today. We've got, the first documented AI orchestrated cyber attack that operated, almost entirely autonomously. Jeff Bezos coming out of CEO retirement with a 6.2 billion AI play with a B. Microsoft unifying its entire data and AI platform strategy at Ignite. Saw lots of stories this week. And Google launching Gemini 3 with full agentic capabilities. Kind of, behind the ball here. A lot of other companies have already done that, but, better late than never. Our first story here, kind of crazy. The first AI orchestrated cyber attack. So let's go with the summary here. So in mid-September 2025, Anthropic detected and disrupted what they're calling the first large-scale cyber attack, executed almost entirely by AI agents with minimal human intervention. So key takeaways from this article were that obviously it was, the first AI-led cyber attack, 80 to 90% autonomous operation with AI executing reconnaissance, exploitation, credential harvesting, and data extraction all independently. Insane. The attack speed was insane. Thousands of requests per second, far beyond, human capability, right? Sophisticated jailbreaking. So attackers bypass safety guardrails by framing malicious tasks as legitimate security testing and atomizing them into innocent seeming requests. Very, very scary. So the question is, if AI models can be weaponized this effectively, should companies like Anthropic slow down or even pause development? Or does the cat and mouse game with adversaries mean we must keep advancing AI for defensive purposes?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think with technology in general, that's always a discussion point, right?
Yep.
Because as technology is developing, there's always two sides of the coin. You've got your individuals that are just developing technology, improving for, you know, more of a business side or a productivity side, for your everyday people. And you'll always have the other side of the coin that's going to try to hack their way through, steal data, sell it, whatever they end up doing with it, right? So I do
Right.
think it's going to be an age-old discussion as we grow older, and it will never go away, right? I mean,
Yeah.
from anything like these self-driving cars to as we get, automated robots that people are getting for cleaning their cars and stuff or cleaning their houses and stuff. I think it's just going to be one of those things where you're always going to need to be chasing better security. And I'm sure that at some point there'll be issues with it where hackers do get through. And I think the problem that you kind of look at with this is the scope is so much larger. Like you said, it was like 1,000 per, what was it?
Yeah, it was 1,000 requests per second.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah. So no person is doing that. And so the amount of data that can be stolen and scraped and stored and all of that, I mean, from what I understand, right, because it is it's an orchestrator. They had basically one main bot get in and just it's like dispersing in a way. I mean, obviously, it's like dispersing its own network of agents, I guess you would call it in this case, but all of them for a specific task. And I think once you have them trained on a specific task, they can each, I mean, you think of how you would use it in just a general, you've talked on multi-agent orchestration plenty of times,
Yep.
and there's a reason why we're all moving to multi-agent orchestration. It's because everything can have its own specialty, right? So,
Yep.
so I think my ultimate take is that we should be pushing forward. I think that if they stagnate, the people that do have bad intentions are just going to find ways to excel anyways. It's really just any industry. I mean, even video games, right?
Yeah.
They're always implementing new anti-cheats and stuff like that, but they're always there. Cheaters are always there. Hackers are always there. Like it's just something that I don't think is ever going away. And it's really cat and mouse is a great way to explain it because it's like, okay, well, we've fixed it to where they can't get in. Oh, look, the other side's, oh, we found a way to get in. Now we're gonna, it's just back and forth and back and forth. And I don't really know. I think Anthropic has done a really good job of focusing on security, and that's why they're one of my favorite, AI companies. Is
Hmm.
they've kind of been focused heavily on their security from the get-go, whereas some of these other companies are more worried about scaling fast, bigger, better, fast, right? Um, so I mean, I think if they continue building security measures as they go, hopefully that helps. But something like this is only going to evolve, and I'm surprised honestly that they caught it as quickly as they did.
I mean, it's funny that you say that because the funny thing is the reason why it wasn't as widespread and you know crazy as you would think it was is because Claude's so they the way they orchestrated the attack was because they jailbroke Claude and used it for the attack. But essentially Claude's limitations saved the day. So its hallucinations of credentials required human verification, which prevented fully autonomous attacks, which is hilarious and also awesome at the same time. In this instance, you're like, thank God for hallucinations. But all
Yeah.
other instances, you're like, Jesus, man, I wish AI was better. So it's like this weird thing where it's like, hey, you know, normally you hate hallucinations, when you're dealing with data, when you're trying to, do anything with your data, in terms of, making your company better, or summarizing, whatever the heck you want to summarize. But in this instance, it was just like hallucinations were the key. It's very, very
All
crazy.
calculated. All calculated. Part of the plan from the beginning.
It was Anthropic's plan from the beginning. This was their
Yeah.
this was their defense. They
If
knew it was coming.
if we don't know what's happening, they don't know what's happening.
Right. And I guess that brings, to the other point is that the same AI capabilities that enabled the attacks are now essential for defense as well, because Anthropic used Claude to analyze the attack data. Um, so I guess it's just going to be a future where it's just AI agents versus AI agents, and it's just like one
Yeah.
agent detects, 1,000 requests, and then another agent, tries blocking those 1,000 requests, and um, yeah, it's going to be crazy. That brings us to the second question is, because it was Anthropic's AI that was jailbroken, what happens when another AI is jailbroken and used for cyber attacks? Who bears the responsibility? Is it the model creator? Is it, the attacker, or both? What level of, safeguards is enough before we can say a company did their can't even talk, due diligence?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to that other point, right? Like how it's hard to gauge. I mean, honestly, like I have a hard time ever. really identifying the point where it feels like they've done their due diligence because it just feels like no matter what, the other side of the coin is going to find a way, right?
Yeah.
It's, I feel like it's just inevitable.
Hmm.
Now, I'm sure many arguments could be made on whether that's just a history of tech companies not doing what they, promise, but ultimately, there's really smart people on both sides of the coin, and they're both constantly developing their own programs and stuff like that. And the funny part is though, them using, Claude against itself basically
Yeah.
is I assume they're always gonna just share the same limitations.
Right.
So I mean
Or it's like the company keeps like the best version of the AI for themselves and then
yeah.
releases like the all right version and then uses the best version for defense.
Well, then
I
comes
don't
your
I
question
don't
around open source stuff, right?
yeah, I mean I don't have the answer. I mean it's crazy. Um I think that you can't really you can't really blame the company uh, to that to 100%, right? I mean they made their model to help people, help companies do their tasks better, help their employees do their tasks better, and just the help society in general. And Anthropic's been one of the companies, like you said, that's been heavy on security. um I think it's hard because let's go back to Sora 2 came out, and people can make videos, and Sora 2 now in the video adds like a moving what's it called, watermark or whatever. But literally the day after, there was already solutions out there removing that watermark.
Yeah.
So it's what can companies do, really? I mean, they put all this effort into putting all these safeguards in place, but then you always have those bad actors out there who just want to see the world burn and you know
Mhm.
basically do bad stuff with it. So yeah, I personally don't think that companies should be held liable, but at least 100%. I don't know what that would look like from a partial standpoint. Maybe they need to atone somehow monetarily or free AI services or something, depending. I don't know, but yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Uh, yeah, I think it's probably just gonna come down to all these like it's gonna be little militaries of bots fighting each other. Like, I mean, if they're going to use multi-agent orchestration with several different agents pushing through, is Anthropic just going to come back and be like, all right, you want to party? We got now they're going to have some level of multi-agent orchestration for defense. Like, do you think that's something that they'll end up doing?
Right. And I mean, to be honest, it's also not really fully on Anthropic, because I know a lot of companies and governments that are way behind in terms of security and cybersecurity when it comes to AI. So it should also just be on the company's fault, right, for allowing something like this to happen without having proper safeguards in place, credentialing, like preventing employees from leaking their own credentials and allowing these autonomous agents to do stuff like this. So it's all up in the air. Yeah,
Security and governance, baby. Security and
right, security and
governance.
governance. um
I think you're right, though. I think that's a good point. I think if you're a company that's implementing stuff like this and you don't have proper things in place, controls in place, I think you are more at fault than Anthropic for it. I think they can be the front line or, wherever they stand in your line, I guess. But at the end of the day, you're the one that holds all the customer data. And if you
yep.
decide to be lackluster and lazy with your system and how you implement it, you're just leaving open doors. even if Anthropic's got a castle, you're just leaving the gates open
Yep.
for others to walk through. So, um, yeah, I think you're right. I think it will be, dependent. And I think, as things go along, what really needs to be tracked is, maybe the first offense, don't hold them accountable. But if they make no effort to improve their system and it happens again, then they should be held accountable. The
Right.
classic adage, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice. Or fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. So
Yep. Makes sense. So Jeff Bezos is back. Crazy. I feel like he never left. Always hear
it
stories about
really
him.
doesn't. Yeah,
All him renting out the city of Venice or something to have
that's the
his,
craziest thing I've ever
wedding.
seen.
Him,
Yeah.
destroying a historical bridge to, get his yacht out of a canal. I feel like there's always stories about him, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess the story's kind of positive. So essentially, he's returning as operational leadership for the first time since stepping down as Amazon CEO in what 2021, and he's
Was it
going
that long
on
ago?
what
It was that long ago?
yeah 2021. Time flies. Um, but yeah, so it's been what 4 years, and he's going big. He's got 6.2 billion in funding, largest early stage AI startup, war chest globally, which is crazy. Um, Basically, not just chatbots. He's targeting engineering, manufacturing, aerospace, and the physical economy. Co-CEO Vic Bajaj, he's a physicist and chemist with Google X, uh, and Verily, or he was with Google X, Verily, and Foresight, and he's Labs pedigree, I guess. Foresight Labs pedigree, and he's got deep experience in applied science. So I guess that's kind of cool. So you've got
Yeah.
a business minded CEO, and then a tech minded CEO, basically creating this AI project called Project Prometheus, which is kind of cool. Um, but so we've seen massive investments in language models and chatbots. Why is AI for the physical economy potentially the next major frontier? What advantages does Bezos have in this domain, given his Blue Origin and Amazon logistics background? I think he has a lot of advantage, right? I mean, his he spent his whole don't even remember when Amazon came out, but over 20 something years, basically building, or probably not over 20 years, but it's been a long time.
Been about that,
Uh,
like 15, 20, 15, 20. It's been pretty close to 20, I think.
yeah, so yeah, it's been a long time. I mean, I remember when he was just selling books.
Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, he basically automated a ton of his warehouse where he has like robots and
Oh
that
yeah.
go and pull packages and stuff and all that. So I think going more of the physical route is probably a good idea, because that we have tons of companies already out there doing language models and all that jazz.
Yeah.
um and I think with his background in orchestrating all of Amazon, and getting Amazon its own planes, so they didn't have to rely on you know FedEx, UPS, all that stuff. I mean, they still rely on them, but uh, just the whole way he built his company, I think this company should do well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's funny it being named after Prometheus, which is the Greek Titan, who brought fire and knowledge. So
Yeah.
just Jeff Bezos behind a company that's, you know, named after fire and knowledge is just so fitting. Um, I'm curious to see where it'll go. I think the reason that it's coming out with such a high valuation, part of it is going to be pedigree, and history. that he has a history of massive success in all of his companies. I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with Blue Origin, which is the space company he founded, but
Hmm.
they just recently launched their first rocket that could land itself. And it was actually really cool. So when it landed, I mean, and this is all automated, right? This isn't being controlled by people. SpaceX has
Right.
been doing it for 15 years now, 10 to 15 years now with their Falcon, I think is what it's called, Falcon. But they just did their own, and after watching SpaceX do it for 10 years, they've made some improvements. So it was really cool. It landed on, a drone ship out in the middle of the ocean. And then it actually, when it lands, it welds itself to the drone ship,
Oh, what the
which is
hell?
crazy. Yeah, there's like a
Automated welding?
little, well, I think what it is it once it lands, it triggers like some little like tack explosives, so it just tacks itself to it. It's not like it's
Interesting.
got a little arm that comes out and just starts welding it. But it's still really cool. But because the success of that, I think they have massive contracts with NASA, and they've done a couple of their missions where they like take people into like the edge of space and bring it back down. So between multiple of his companies, obviously he'll probably bring a good amount of success here. I have faith in it being successful. I think he's good at kind of sitting and reviewing the state of things and kind of moving on his chessboard where he thinks the next opportunities are, rather than sitting here and pursuing, you know, all these other companies. Like you said, there's so many other LLMs and companies coming out with stuff all the time right now. Instead of just sitting here coming out with some new one that's going to compete, he is targeting areas that aren't, some of them are more targeted, right? So I think it'll be pretty interesting. I think I'm really big into the space world, like the aerospace world. So I'll love tracking that, of course. Um, I'm not Jeff Bezos's I'm not a Jeff Bezos fan personally. But you can't deny that he knows business.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with a lot of these guys. At the end of the day, they know their business. Elon Musk, he was able to, get Tesla, an EV, to somehow be popular in a time where no EVs were popular and they were made fun of.
Yeah.
Um, Plus his space company is literally at the forefront at all times. So arguably 5, 10, 15 years ahead of any other space company. So
I mean, a broken
yeah,
clock is right twice a day. So,
yeah. So I think Jeff Bezos will be an interesting watch here, and this project will be an interesting watch. I'm sure it'll evolve a lot, and there will be pitfalls and things, and I guarantee you we'll talk about it on here, and we'll probably end up shit talking about it here and there. So
probably. I mean, I always should talk OpenAI. So maybe
mm.
you can take the mantle and start shit talking his new company. But yeah, I mean, in general, yeah, I think it's great that he's developing models that are specifically for aerospace, the automotive industry, advanced manufacturing, because all the other companies are just doing like general purpose models and ones that can help the general populace, etc. But it's cool that he's building models that are specifically just for those you know automated industries, essentially, or what would you call it? I guess physical physical economy
Yeah.
is
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think.
just the niche industries,
Yeah.
him focusing on that, I think is nice and unique, and will be beneficial for companies, more beneficial than just building on some of these general models.
Right. Yep. So Microsoft Ignite 2025. Lots of crazy things happening. A little too
Wow.
much. I feel like my head's gonna explode trying to decipher everything that Microsoft has come out with. But
Yeah.
I can't knock Microsoft. They have a great way of you know pushing the limits of how to get everybody to stay on their ecosystem. Um,
Yeah.
but the idea of Ignite this year was essentially, I mean, there were a lot of other stuff, agents, etc. But the main points, in my opinion, the most important things that they came out with was essentially a unified intelligence platform for their agentic AI. So essentially, they came up with a three-layer intelligence architecture. So work IQ. So I guess everything that they came out with when it in terms of a data platform has the word IQ next to it. So work
Mhm.
IQ is for productivity data plus preferences. Fabric IQ is for business semantics and ontologies. So ML, all that jazz. A unified data platform where companies can send all their business businessy uh, data, and then
Right.
Foundry
Yeah.
IQ, which is agentic retrieval and knowledge federation. Um, so kind of crazy. They basically unified, all their different, you know, siloed data platforms into these three major platforms, which was pretty cool. And in terms of AI, making everything as streamlined as possible is probably what most people want, because there's so many things out there, so much out there. Having siloed things for different agent functionalities, pro code, low code, etc. Now pro code and low code all have three separate tiers of data platforms to talk to, and companies can and should use all of them if they are in the Microsoft ecosystem. So basically, Microsoft is creating incredible value by unifying data, productivity, and AI layers, but it also deepens dependency on their ecosystem. Is this the Office suite strategy for the AI era? And does it give them an insurmountable advantage over competitors?
I think it was very important that they really take the spider web of everything and create three different buckets. I think that's not only smart for the current state, but also for the future state as they scale everything. And like you said, Microsoft has done a spectacular job in their business dealings with various AI platforms. AI, Azure AI Foundry is a great example. Their recent deals with OpenAI, and uh, bu- 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 bu-
Claude,
why
Anthropic.
yeah, Claude and Anthropic, right? So, um, I think they do a great job of staying on top of all that. And then, as everything has started expanding out, it's so easy. And we've kind of talked about it in the past of getting caught up in the AI slop, right? And even in their own platforms. I mean, you have Copilot everywhere. And I think we actually talked about this a couple weeks ago. We were talking about how Copilot's everywhere and it felt kind of directionless. And
Mm-hmm.
so taking everything and bucketing it like this really will not only help them with scalability, but it'll help users understand where things are a lot better than they currently do. So I think it's great for productivity. I think it's great for the ecosystem as a whole. And I think it will encourage others to adopt and adapt to it.
Yeah,
Curious
for
to hear your
sure.
thoughts though.
I just want to read, a couple more things. So unified context as competitive advantage. So 20 million existing Power BI semantic models become essentially the foundation for AI understanding and business operations within Fabric. So that's crazy. 20 million models. So, whatever type of data you have somewhat mostly plug and play, where you put it into these models and, you can get any type of whatever type of insight you want from your data. Um, Massive Anthropic partnership. So 30 billion compute commitment from Anthropic, and then 15 billion total investment from Nvidia and Microsoft, plus Claude available across the entire Microsoft ecosystem. Amazing. Azure essentially becomes the only cloud offering both OpenAI and Anthropic frontier models with deep integration. So the probably two biggest leaders out there in terms of AI, they offer both. In terms of security and governance for these agents, they now have an Agent 365 control platform, which not only has a single registry for agents, it has security, monitoring, and governance for all organizational agents, regardless of where they're built. So they could be built on Pro Code Foundry, they could be built on low code Copilot Studio. Amazing. And they actually have proven results. So AT&T achieved 33% reduction in customer resolution times and scaled 71 AI solutions to 100,000 employees using this architecture. That is awesome. That stupid MIT story that came out saying 90% of AI POCs fail. That's another story for another day, but just not true. It's the way you go about it. If you actually go and push hard for AI, fix your data, get input from all your employees, you can achieve results just like AT&T.
Yeah, it was cherry
Thoughts?
picked too,
Crazy.
like crazy.
And then Foundry IQ treats retrieval as a reasoning task, so delivering 36% better answer quality through iterative search and reflection. So it's essentially you ask it a question and then it essentially does recursive thinking and then gives you the best answer. Kind of crazy. So I guess the question is now with this Anthropic partnership and that previous OpenAI partnership, is this about reducing dependency risk, giving customers real choice, or is Microsoft just hedging its bets on which AI lab will win? What does this mean for OpenAI?
Yeah, I think my main I I think it's giving customers real choice, honestly. I think they
Mm,
have really offered a nice, robust system here, um, where you can choose, especially if you look at like Azure AI Foundry, they're always adding things there. I think that's a great example. But they've got deals with multiple companies that they can leverage their agents and their LLMs and stuff like that, right?
right.
So I think for more than anything, it's just another step in Microsoft expanding their platform. I don't think I mean, in a way, it's also reducing dependency risk as well, right? So it's kind of, it's two good things all in one. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they're not getting stuck with their eggs in one basket. The open AI is what we hear everything about, but they've
Right.
got deals, OpenAI now, they can leverage Claude, you hear about Grok and so on and so forth, right? But yeah, I think it's good for them as a whole for security, just kind of again, scalability. They're setting themselves up so well for scalability that it feels like they have a strategy. It doesn't feel like they are just throwing stuff at a wall and hoping something sticks. It feels like they have a good strategy. They're building a good foundation. They're, they're leveraging feedback from users pretty regularly, it feels like. So, and they're constantly evolving to make things feel less less of a disarray. So
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of respect for Microsoft on this, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the way they're going about it is awesome. I will say though, there are some things that I feel like they're just throwing AI at it just for the heck of it. Obviously you can't bat for 1,000 all the time.
Mm.
And But this change, this fundamental change in unifying everything, security, governance, the data layer, and then having, their separate major uh, agent development platforms is awesome. So I think they obviously should stick to what they're doing, and tone down the noise on all the other random stuff that they're trying to push in, which I think is
Mm,
just information overload and realistically feature overload. There, some
yeah.
of the things I saw just didn't make sense, like generative AI within SQL Server itself, and I'm just like, why would you have that when you are already essentially selling or sending that data to like a fabric or something, and then doing AI on top of that? Just a lot of AI overload for sure.
Yeah. No,
Um,
yeah. And that's kind of what we've talked about, right? Just
yeah,
especially like I like what you said, feature overload.
yeah. Um, and then obviously, speaking of feature overload, Gemini coming out with Gemini 3. It's always just like, you know, one leapfrog over the next leapfrog over the next leapfrog of, who's gonna release the next greatest model. Um, Crazy. So essentially Google launched Gemini 3, positioning it as their most intelligent AI model yet, with state of the art reasoning and the introduction of radically new interaction paradigms. The release includes three major innovations. So a generative interface that dynamically creates custom UIs for each prompt. So think interactive trip planners and loan calculators generated on the fly. The Gemini agent for autonomous multi-step task execution across Google Apps with Google, and then Google Anti-Gravity. That's a interesting name. Full agentic development platform for Mac OS, Windows, and Linux. That's actually really cool. Gemini 3, I guess, benchmarks here, tops the Web Dev Arena leaderboard with a 1,487 ELO score and achieves a 76.2% on the software engineering bench, uh, less than Claude still. Just want to mention that. Uh, Established, but essentially, what this is saying is uh, it's Google's best vibe coding model. Um,
Yeah.
Vibe coding, such a weird concept, but
The fact
to
that
be
that was such a
honest,
big selling point for them was so weird for me.
yeah. I mean, uh, to be honest, I kind of vibe code a lot too, but
What a
I
guy.
I actually understand the code, so it's a difference,
There you go.
guys. It's a
That's
difference.
okay. That's okay then. And you're not
um,
doing it on an enterprise level.
right, exactly. But yeah, essentially the release integrates across Google's ecosystem at an unprecedented scale, available immediately in the Gemini app, Google AI Studio, Vertex AI, and Google Search AI mode. That's cool. It's I think that's the first time that they've actually put their one of their frontier models actually into their search platform,
And
and
on
I
day
think that's
one,
because
nonetheless.
yeah, and I think that's just because, with Perplexity search and OpenAI deep research and Claude deep research, all that stuff coming out, Google was just like, we need to make our search platform better. Uh, but if AI, can generate custom interfaces on the fly, on demand, does this fundamentally disrupt traditional UX and UI design? Are we moving towards, a world where every user gets a personalized interface? And what are the implications for accessibility and consistency?
Hmm, those are interesting questions. I don't know. It's hard to tell right now because this is a new thing. I haven't really seen this where when you search something, it just gives you, a generated UI specifically tailored to what you're searching. I will say the examples I saw were pretty neat. They're looking at, they searched some sort of mathematic thing, I believe is what it was. And it generated an actual, I don't know if you want to call it like a graphic or whatever, but it was like a dynamic graphic basically that it
Hmm.
used to display the answer, right? And you could dig down deeper, say you're trying to learn something. And the cool part about these is that, like when you search ChatGPT, it's basically doing what Gemini is doing. It's just scraping the internet for, the answers most of the time. And Gemini, obviously, they have like exclusive stuff going on there, right? So
Hmm.
they have a lot more access, anyways, especially being the leader in search engines.
Right.
Um, so when you get into like their research mode and stuff like that, when you're really trying to learn something, you've always said, let's Google it, right? And then you go in and you manually go and try to go into articles and figure it out. And then you're reading, you're highlighting things, you're blah, 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 right? So it
Yep.
is interesting to see this automatically generate this interface for you that is specifically tailored to helping you learn what you're trying to learn or figure out what you're trying to figure out.
Hmm.
Um, coming out of college, I can immediately see so many amazing use cases for this. And honestly, with the explosion of all these different models like ChatGPT and Gemini and all that, you're going to see the absolute death of companies like Chegg and all these other, companies that people use to get answers and stuff, right?
Is
I
Chegg
think
even still a
this,
company?
yeah. Oh yeah, but you'd have to pay $25 a month for that, right?
Right.
Um, I think it's gonna be really cool because even when I was kind of at the tail end of my degree, I
Hmm.
could use ChatGPT to learn. It was like a personal tutor, right? You
Right.
didn't have to just, because sometimes a professor will give you something that you need to do, but they might not give you great context around it. And so a lot of people would go search on the internet just for other people's work to get context, right? Whether they're copying the work or not, some people just wanted context. And the cool thing about ChatGPT and now Gemini is that you can go in, you can ask questions, and it will actually teach you as you go. And this is really cool because it's generating this dynamic interface. And you know, a lot of times, especially for me, like seeing it helps me understand a lot better. So this case where they're doing some sort of mathematic, I'm not a math guy, right? So I don't understand what it was, but I was able to watch it and follow along and kind of get the general idea of what's going on there.
Hmm.
So I don't know about how the future is going to look around just this constant generated UI stuff for you. I don't know how much it changes per search or whatever. So I think it'll be interesting. I think Google is really great at coming out with these types of just random ideas and innovations that you probably wouldn't think of.
Yep.
And it's really impressive with anti-gravity that the development environment is available for Mac, Windows, and Linux. I just kind of want to throw that out there as well because
Yeah,
a lot of
for
these
sure.
models they release and they're only available for Mac or they're only available for Windows. Trust me, I know because I've run into this limitation and it's frustrating. So
I mean,
yeah, I mean,
you use your Mac for personal, and then Windows for work. So that makes sense.
no, no, I use Windows for everything. I don't have a Mac. I only use Apple for my phone and my iPad.
Oh,
That's all I use.
I thought your personal laptop was Mac. Whoops.
No, I like having a little more freedom than what I get with Mac.
Good. Good. Excellent.
Yeah,
I
I'm not
despise.
maybe not gonna make you proud on the Android versus Apple front, but
It's fine. We know you're wrong. Android is better.
what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? I yapped too long on that.
That's fine. Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. You know, Microsoft, Google, they have their own cloud platforms. They have their own office suites, etc. It was only a matter of time when Google fully started to integrate Gemini into literally everything. Gemini is now in Chrome. I guess that's a knock on, what was it, Perplexity's browser and OpenAI's browser. I forget what the OpenAI browser is called, but the
Is that
uh,
Alice?
Perplexity one is Comet. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was only a matter of time before Google deployed it everywhere, and this model supposedly, I mean, I haven't tested it. I've seen I've seen some demos, etc., but without fully getting hands on, I can't fully put my stamp of approval saying it's one of the greatest models out there. But judging by the benchmarks and everything Google said it can do, I mean, this is a big release, and it's going to be hard for other companies to scale as much as Google has, because they have everything just like Microsoft. They have the infrastructure, they have the actual cloud, they have their own Office suite just like Microsoft. So it's going to be interesting to see how everything shapes up. Um, my question is like, with Mustafa Suleyman at Microsoft, Microsoft's trying to spin up their own models too. Wonder what that will look like eventually in the future. Like, are they going to have a monopoly just like Google, with their entire ecosystem, because they have their own model itself as well? So it's going to be an interesting future for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually a good point. I I think it's also interesting mentioning that I feel like we're starting to see kind of a separation of focuses from some of these, Gemini's been good at web dev, right?
Yeah.
Web development. I mean, it's been really impressive, but Claude, frankly, has not really been that impressive as far as like really all around. I mean, Claude obviously is great with general code and stuff, but you really have to work a lot with it to get good looking UIs.
Hmm.
Um, where I think Gemini does just natively a really good job with that. So I feel like this is kind of where you start seeing some of this plug and play, right? Of these different agents and what they specialize in, what they're better at. Maybe Google is more interested in the web development side than they are just a pure general development side. So I don't know, maybe something to think about, where we know Claude is huge on the pure development side, right?
Right. Right. Gonna be interesting for sure. You know, where all this comes, where all this comes to head. You know, are companies eventually gonna learn that bigger is not always better and try to go a different way instead of just relying on making LLM models as big as they can? Who knows? But I
Yeah.
think it's definitely, at least for the future, they're going to need to figure out a different model than just LLMs.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think even seeing Microsoft start leveraging more of like a couple different things, we're doing a little more recursive stuff is
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's hit our final wrap up questions here. So, winner and loser of the week. So, who made the smartest move this week? Microsoft Unified Platform play, Google's aggressive agent deployment, Bezos's contrarian physical AI bet, or Anthropic's transparency about the cyber attack?
That is a really tough question.
Yeah.
I honestly would have to say it come down between the Prometheus with Jeff Bezos and Microsoft's IQ buckets. I
Hmm.
think both of them have massive potential. So I think like I said, the amount of scalability and clarity that the IQ buckets provide is vital for Microsoft. But I also think that with Jeff Bezos' company coming in and targeting, like I said, the more physical part of everything, like just these very niche things, I think that's going to really displace a lot, including what we currently have with some of these companies, these AI companies. I'm sure it'll take time. So I think short term, I would say Microsoft made the biggest, the smartest move. And
Mhm.
long term, I'd say Jeff Bezos with Prometheus has probably made the better one.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Loser. So who's in trouble? OpenAI, Microsoft's hedging its bet with Anthropic, traditional cybersecurity companies, AI changing the game, or Amazon with Bezos leaving to compete. I think it's, companies as a whole in terms of cybersecurity who haven't made the shift to, better cybersecurity model, better security models, better governance models, when it comes to being proactive and looking to the future and seeing like, oh, possibly some of these cyber attacks could be, you know, automated and, much faster than, any human could do. So in I think in terms of loser, I think it's any company that isn't proactively increasing the scale and functionality of their cybersecurity and robustness of the governance model.
Yeah, you know what? This kind of brings something back in my mind here because I think this attack with Anthropic is very important. It is very good that this happened when it happened because, we talked about it recently of the current administration and like a lot of governing, like, politicians stuff there. They made a huge push to drop a lot of regulations around AI so that it could build up more and be bigger more quickly. But look at what happens, if this was another company, say this was OpenAI, would they have caught it? I know technically, yeah, this was on a technicality, right? Like
Mhm.
the hallucination, like you said, was the reason.
Yeah.
But either way, I mean, Anthropic, when I think of the number one in security, I think of Anthropic. I mean, since the beginning of this podcast, we've talked about Anthropic and different things they've done around security and stuff like that. So I think the current administration and any politicians moving forward, I don't want that to, I don't want it to sound like a party thing. Uh, I think any politicians currently should know about this and acknowledge this and see this is why it's so important to build a strong foundation because they're always talking about China. Well, this was a Chinese backed what group that did this. So, if they're doing this just on the company level to access certain information, what do you think they do whenever you lazily implement something in your own governing body? So implement proper strategy, implement proper security. This isn't about just a foot race. This is about, you know, intellect. This has to be done properly. And guess what? It doesn't take 1 year to do. It's gonna take longer. But that's okay. That should be okay. Because guess what? This is a foundation for something that's gonna be in place and built on for who knows how long, decades for
Right.
sure. You know,
Yeah.
this is a very important time in, the in American history, honestly. Um, because you could fuck this up right now and put America back so far financially and on a timeline level. So it has to be an intellect thing, not just a pure foot race.
Yep. Yep. So bold prediction time. Based on today's stories, make one bold prediction for where we are in 12 months.
Okay, so my bold prediction is going to be 12 months from now, regulatory action around agentic AI will not have taken place on a proper level if it's even been started. I think that it's obviously not a priority. There are a couple things that are obviously at the forefront of the current administration's mind. And I think this will fall to the wayward side because it's just not something that, we've seen interviews with our government on basic technology that they're asking really stupid questions about, whether it was the Facebook stuff, the Meta stuff, the TikTok stuff, um, Twitter/X stuff. Like there's been constant cases of them asking really stupid questions, and when they're answered, them still showing little to no understanding.
Hmm.
And they're obviously focused on other things right now. So I think that they made their initial position clear, and that is more, bigger, more, bigger. They just care about getting more at a faster rate. They literally dialed back regulatory um, frameworks that were in place or being put in place. And I think it's the same thing with like the energy front. You see them undo a lot of energy stuff that was really good for infrastructure in the future. Whether it's not even about green energy or anything like that. In that case, it's about scalable energy. So I think that my bold prediction would be not enough regulatory actions taken on agentic AI within the next 12 months.
Like I'll take that bet as well. That's a good bet. I think for me, I'd say that probably Microsoft's agent platform will dominate the enterprise. And I think one of the biggest factors, and I know we didn't talk about this during, this podcast, but Oracle, who, has NetSuite, all that Oracle ERP stuff, is actually not doing so well after that 300 billion, announcement. I think their valuation has dropped around $30 billion, and I and I believe it's due to the fact that investors are weary that they're placing their entire AI strategy on OpenAI, whereas Microsoft, Google, Amazon have stayed pretty much steady the last couple months, and due to the fact that Oracle will probably lose a ton of market share because of this. I think Microsoft is poised, as with all of the updates and improvements that they're doing, to eat up a lot of that market share for sure.
Yeah, that was a good prediction. I think I thought it might be a little bit, but that's a good point. I think that's a great example of what we were talking about earlier on Microsoft having such a good strategy as far as not putting all their eggs in one basket. They're not, Oracle just basically made a deal with money they don't have. It's all on an IOU. So, um, yeah, they already didn't have the same cash on hand, if you will.
Right.
They don't have the same cash flow that Microsoft and Google and some of the larger leaders have. And so them going all in on this one deal that they don't even see the money for, and who else is going to use that if OpenAI fails? Who's going to use that? And I
Right.
don't really trust OpenAI anyways. They have made a lot of
Closed AI.
shady stuff happen, and for all we know, they're going to halfway pay this back, make moves that they want to make, and then fall through on it. I would not be
Right.
surprised, if they back out of it after getting a little bit of what they want and using this as a stepping stone. Like, I hope for Oracle's sake that they put a lot of safety nets in place.
For sure. For sure. So here's where we are. AI agents are attacking networks autonomously. Billionaires are betting billions on the agent economy. And the platforms are unifying data and intelligence to power those agents at scale. The question isn't whether agentic AI is coming, it's whether we're building the right guardrails, governance structures, and societal frameworks to handle AI that acts without asking permission for every step. Microsoft thinks the answer is centralized control planes. Google thinks it's powerful models with user control. Bezos thinks we're all looking at the wrong problem. It's the physical economy that matters. And Anthropic's, you know, just proved that adversaries are already exploiting, these capabilities at the state level. One thing's clear, the next 12 months are going to be wild. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. We'll be posting, on LinkedIn. We'll be posting on Buzzsprout. We'll be posting on Spotify. So let us know what you guys think below. What are your thoughts? Biggest losers, biggest winners, bold predictions for 2026. And we'll catch you next week. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you guys.